Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and pause intermittently here and there to talk about things that are going on, to better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
Hello, my name is Matt Clark, and I am the commander of the Denver Police Department's Major Crimes Division. This critical incident debriefing is intended to provide you with information regarding a fatal shooting involving Denver police officers that occurred in the area of 38th Avenue and Olive Street in Northeast Denver on Friday, June 4th, 2021. You are about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case, so you have an understanding of the details of this incident. The use of deadly force by a police officer demands a thorough investigation be completed. The Denver Police Department is committed to ensuring a full and timely investigation of these serious incidents. This allows for a comprehensive examination of the officer's actions to determine compliance with state statutes and department policies. In accordance with legislation passed in 2015, the investigation of police shootings occurring in Denver are conducted by a multi-agency investigative team made up of members of the Denver and Aurora Police Department homicide units, as well as the Denver District Attorney's Office. All critical incident investigations are actively monitored by the Office of the Independent Monitor. Throughout this briefing, portions of the body camera video and surveillance video obtained during the investigation will be shown to provide context and detail. All officers assigned to uniform patrol duties in Denver have been issued body-worn cameras. These devices are generally worn at chest level by patrol officers and are capable of recording both audio and video. Prior to being activated by the officer, the body-worn camera maintains a 30-second video buffer. Once the officer activates the camera, the 30-second buffer video is captured and the camera starts recording both audio and video. It is important to note that a body-worn camera captures a general perspective of what is in the camera's view. However, this footage may or may not be what the officer saw or perceived. At times, an officer's movement or hand positioning may inadvertently block the camera's view. Additionally, the camera may not capture light in the same way as an officer's eye. A word of caution. The images and information you are about to see may be disturbing. When a police officer uses force to arrest a suspect or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language used by those shown in the video. Viewer discretion is advised. On Friday, June 4th, 2021, at approximately 5:30 p.m., the Denver Police Department received 6 separate 911 calls reporting an individual was firing a gun in the area of Martin Luther King Jr. Park at 38th Avenue and Olive Street.
Man, what the fuck is it with stupid shit going on roads and places named after Dr. Martin Luther King? I think that's kind of insulting, really. This dude did a lot, and it just seems like the places that are named after him are just magnets for stupidity. I mean, there was a popular meme that had made its rounds, and it said something like, when the GPS says turning onto Martin Luther King Boulevard, that's when you hear the doors locking on the car. Something like that. I don't know. But it is intriguing to me. It seems like a lot of places around this country that you go to, there's always some bullshit fuckery going on streets and places named after Dr. Martin Luther King. And like I said, that sucks. That's sad. That's insulting to a great man who's done a lot of good stuff. I wish it wasn't like that, but as the saying goes, it is what it is.
I'm at the corner of Olive and 38th Avenue. I think there's a gentleman shooting a gun at MLK Park. I saw the guy shooting in a black Jeep Cherokee. I think there's a dude shooting a gun over there. He's shooting it right now. I believe I was hearing shots fired up there, and I got out of there.
The male subject, who was later identified as 31-year-old Colton Wagner, was reportedly standing next to a Jeep that was parked in the 3800 block of Olive Street and shooting a firearm. Denver police officers promptly responded in marked Denver police vehicles. Upon arriving, the officers observed Mr. Wagner reaching into a gray Jeep Grand Cherokee that was parked on the roadway. The officers took positions behind vehicles parked on the roadway along the east side of the park directly north of Mr. Wagner. The uniformed officers verbally identified themselves as police officers and issued multiple commands to Mr. Wagner to show his hands.
Okay, so these officers are responding to a call where shots have been fired. And this officer goes at it with a fucking pistol. Oh my God, this shit gets on my damn nerves. And this is one of my biggest gripes on these videos. Officers responding to calls involving gunfire, and they don't get their fucking rifles out. Now, some places, the officers don't have rifles in their cars, or even shotguns. Like New York, for example. I don't think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think that any of the regular patrol cars in New York have rifles or shotguns in them. There may be some agencies across the country where every single officer does not have a rifle, but there may be some rifles within the agency. There could be some places where it's just the supervisors who have the rifles. And there are some agencies where every single officer has a rifle. There are places in this country where even the poorest agency imaginable has a freaking rifle. So if these podunk agencies that have almost no funding whatsoever can have rifles, then most certainly an agency like Denver can equip all of their patrol officers or all of their patrol cars with rifles. Now, there is an officer that gets out with a rifle on this call, but the rest of them who come here, they all got pistols. Rifles outperform pistols every day of the week. I don't care what kind of bullshit argument to bring up. Those are facts. That's science. Rifles are going to outperform pistols every day of the week. Rifles are going to stop fights faster than a pistol. Rifle cartridges have better incapacitating power than a pistol cartridge. It takes fewer rifle rounds to stop a person than it does pistol rounds. One of the more famous cases that is referenced a lot within firearms training and law enforcement training is the FBI Miami-Dade shootout back in the 1980s. FBI went to go catch a couple of bank robbers / armored truck robbers, got into a gunfight with them, and one of the bank robbers took a round to the head from a pistol, and it only temporarily knocked him unconscious. He was able to wake up later during the middle of the gunfight and crawl out of his car and attempt to steal the car of an FBI agent. His buddy took a fatal hit at the very beginning of this gunfight, but it was not immediately physically incapacitating. He would have, had not other things happened to him, he would have eventually died from that one round. But in this gunfight, it did not immediately incapacitate him. He went on and continued to fight, took more rounds, got shot more additional times with pistol, and went on to kill 2 FBI agents and then seriously wounded a few others. There's multiple cases across this country where people are shot with pistols and then they get back up. It does not immediately incapacitate them. Although there are some people who have been able to survive after being shot with a rifle, there's not that many. When you compare people shot with rifles and people shot with pistols, you're going to find that there's a lot less fucking people walking around who've been shot with rifles than there are pistols. So if you're going to something that is going to have the potential to turn into a gunfight, especially if you hear on the radio, shots fired, then get your fucking rifle out. So as these officers are responding to this call, What can they do to have their rifle at the ready? Well, that depends on how the rifle's set up in the vehicle. If the rifle is set up in the cab area, it's in some type of magnetic lock, they have two options. One, they can pull over to the side of the road, disengage the magnetic lock, pull the rifle out of its holding thing, drape the sling around their neck, wear it like a necklace, essentially, in a one-point configuration type of style, charge the charging handle, danger that bitch up, and then pull back onto the road and proceed to the scene. Or, as they're driving, they can still operate the vehicle, reach over, hit the magnetic disengage button, grab the rifle, pull it over, sling it around their neck, and charge it, all while driving. If the rifle is in the back of the vehicle, the trunk or the cargo hold, then obviously they're going to have to pull over to get it out. But that's what they should do. They should, while en route to this call, they should pull over, get out, grab that rifle, charge it up, get back in, and proceed to the scene. And then, when they arrive to the scene, when they dismount their vehicle, they've got a rifle slung around their neck, and they can immediately put that rifle into play. And if they don't want to sling it around their neck, all they got to do is prop that bitch right in between their leg and the console. And as they get out of the vehicle, they take the rifle with them. That's simple. Part of the problem, in my opinion, on why officers are failing to get their rifles out, it's kind of a multifaceted thing. One, I don't think that a lot of the instructors out there have a real true fighting mindset. There are a lot of agencies out there, and I'm not saying this is the case for Denver Police. I don't know shit about their training program or anything like that. But there are a lot of agencies out there who will take someone from the office, someone who has rank, who just sits in an office all day, and take them and send them through an instructor school, because for the chief law enforcement officer of that agency, or for whoever's in charge of seeing the training stuff and scheduling all that, it's easier for them to take an office person and say, hey, we need you to teach this class next week. And all that office person has to do is make sure that they don't have, a bunch of critical things to do on that one particular day or those two particular days, and then go teach the class. And that's it. Whereas if you take a patrol person, someone who works the road, and you need firearms training done, well, now you're going to take that one patrol guy off the road. So now, whatever shift he's coming from, they're down one person. So now you got to find a replacement for him. Someone's going to have to come in and work overtime to cover for this guy. Depending on, scheduling and stuff like that, they may have to have that person, they may not have enough people to do it during normal working shifts for that person. So that person may end up having to come in and do the firearms training on their off days and then incur more overtime. And they also, because they're just a lowly patrol person, they're not in the office brown-nosing like the others. So, there's not every agency, but there's a lot of agencies out there where the firearms instructor is someone who sits in the building all day and works in an office. Because it's easier for them to do that. Now, does that make them a good instructor? No, it doesn't. In a lot of cases, they're shitty instructors. There's a lot of times your best instructors you're going to find are from some of the dudes working the road. But it's not always logistically easy to schedule them to do a class. So, some of the issues that, like I said, that go into why officers are not getting rifles out. One of it is who's training them. So some of the people who are training them aren't of a good fighting warrior mindset. They just do the bare basics of what they were taught in the class. They regurgitate and go on. So they don't go over things like that. Like, hey, get your rifle ready while en route to this hot call. Pull over to the side of the road. Get that motherfucker charged up. Drape it around your neck while you're driving. Stick it in between your leg and the console while driving. And you get out. You pull up scene, get out. You got it. They may not even be thinking about teaching it like that. When they get to the actual firearms training aspect itself, when they are on the shooting line, they start off with their rifle already on them. And to me, that does not make a whole lot of sense. When you think about your handgun's always with you, right? You're always wearing your duty belt, the gun's always with you. And when you're out and about doing your normal stuff, and the fight happens, boom, you can immediately go to handgun and address the issue. You're not always walking around with a rifle on you. So when firearms training occurs for rifles, you are always starting with a rifle. That's not realistic. That's not accurate. You don't always walk around with a fucking rifle. Your rifle is in your vehicle. So good rifle training, in my opinion, should incorporate going through drills of you starting in the vehicle and getting your damn rifle out of that vehicle, and then getting to the shooting line to commence the shooting training of it. So because that part is not being done, those repetitions are not being put into play of these officers going through the process of getting that rifle out, slinging it around their neck, whatever, putting it in between the console and their leg, driving, starting at the gate, in their car, start at the gate in their car, drive down the range road to where they got to go and get the rifle out and then go to the shooting line. That doesn't happen. Nobody does that shit. But I think that needs to happen because I think those repetitions will get them more inclined to do it under stress. Because when you do stuff under training, you start building up that muscle memory. And when the stressful things happen, you're more likely to be able to recall those things under stress and do those things. So a lack of good instructors with good fighting mindset and a lack of realistic training, in my opinion, are probably leading the problem of officers not getting their rifles out. And also the fact that on a daily basis, cops aren't getting in the shootouts every single fucking day. So they're not always having to get out with their rifle. They're always getting out with a gun on their belt. So those three things I think lead to officers responding to these calls and not getting their rifles out. And it needs to change. It's got to change. It's too dangerous to go to a gunfight with just a pistol only.
Police, show me your hands!
When Mr. Wagner was out of the vehicle and was in full view to the officers observed he was holding a handgun. Officers gave Mr. Wagner specific direction to drop the firearm in an effort to gain his compliance and safely resolve this incident.
Drop it! Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
At one point, Mr. Wagner raised the firearm and placed it to his head. Mr. Wagner did not comply with commands to drop the weapon. He briefly lowered it to his side before turning the firearm towards the uniformed officers. Mr. Wagner raised the handgun in the direction of the officers and began walking towards them. The officers feared Mr.
All right, so we got one officer with a rifle here.
Wagner would fire the weapon at them. In response to Mr. Wagner's actions, the officers raised the handgun in the direction of the officers and began walking towards them. All
right, so this dude's all the way down here. Now this is 3 car lengths away, plus some space in between the bumpers. So I don't know what the distance involved here, but it's stretching it for the pistol. For typical engagements, you're typically not that far away when shooting people with pistol. So aside from the terminal ballistics aspect of a rifle being far superior to a pistol, the ballistics of a rifle being able to shoot, a target at a further distance comes into play. a pistol, you can only get 2 points of contact on that pistol with your body. A rifle, you can get more. With a rifle, like this one, your first point of contact is your dominant firing hand gripping the firing pistol, or the handle of the gun. And then your second is your support hand coming up and holding the rifle. And then your third is the buttstock going into your shoulder. And then the fourth is your cheek going in onto the buttstock itself. And then your fifth is your sling, if you have it wrapped around your arm and you start tensioning it. When you have those multiple points of contact on a rifle, plus the rifle having a longer barrel and an optic on it, well, maybe an optic or a magnifier, you can more accurately hit a target at a further distance. Now, we're not talking like this dude's at fucking sniper distance here. No, yeah, certainly people with pistols can for sure shoot at him and hit him. But when you take a pistol that already has a very short barrel and only 2 points of contact on that thing, you have higher chances of missing with that pistol. Excuse me. Higher chances of missing with that pistol than you do with that rifle. Rifles rock. They dominate.
Officers feared Mr. Wagner would fire the weapon at them. In response to Mr. Wagner's actions, Corporal Matthew Van Portfleet, Corporal Christopher Williams, and Officer Kimberly Blanchard discharged their weapons multiple times.
32 Baker, shots fired. We need an ambulance. Code 10.
Mr. Wagner was struck and fell to the ground. Following the shooting by the officers, an ambulance was called, and officers formulated a plan to safely move.
All right, let's back this up.
Following the shooting by the officers, an ambulance was called, and officers formulated a plan to.
So I don't know if he's the only rifle person. I can't tell what that one person in the front had.
Following the shooting by the officers, an ambulance.
There's someone standing in the front of there. I can't tell what they had. But
was called,
out of all these
and
people
officers
here, it only looks like one person's got a rifle.
Formulated a plan to safely move towards Mr. Wagner. The officers utilized a slow rolling cover approach to safely secure Mr. Wagner and render medical aid. This controlled approach by officers was necessary to ensure their safety because Mr. Wagner's hands and the firearm he possessed were not immediately visible to the officers.
Okay, so I kind of understand their mindset of thinking, hey, let's get behind this vehicle and we'll roll towards him and use this vehicle as cover. Sounds good in theory, but it's not great. Vehicles are horrible choices for cover. Bullets can very easily go through a car. A .22, a tiny little .22 long rifle, can go through an entire door on a vehicle and make it into the second door panel of a vehicle. And depending on where it hits within those doors, it could potentially go through both fucking doors of a vehicle. 9mm can definitely go through both doors of a vehicle. Rifle for sure. No doubt. So this vehicle is approaching this dude from the front. So the driver of the vehicle has his legs and his pelvic region and a little bit of his abdomen protected by the engine block of this SUV. From roughly lower chest going all the way to his head is fully exposed through the regular windshield that a bullet can very easily go through. So that driver is not very well protected at all. The officers who were to the very rear of the SUV may be a little bit better protected because there's a lot of material from front bumper to back bumper but they're sacrificing the driver to be that protected. Like the driver is the fucking sacrificial lamb in this. So it sucks to be you, buddy. I mean, would he get the short end of the straw on the draw on this? That's a shitty place to be. Personally, I think they could have very easily used the vehicles that were here and just bound forward. Someone with a rifle, say this guy, this point of view right here, this guy with the pistol. He has a rifle. He aims up at the guy. They communicate with each other. The other officers bound forward and then approach. This whole trying to use a regular commercial vehicle as a fucking armored personnel carrier is ludicrous. That tells me that people have not had any sufficient experience with shooting vehicles and lack the knowledge of the fact that bullets go through them very easily.
Because Mr. Wagner's hands and the firearm he possessed were not immediately visible to the officers. Mr. Wagner was transported by ambulance. Were not immediately visible to the officers.
So one tactic that I like, that I've seen before in these videos, is everyone stay behind cover, and if the person's laying there and you can't see their hands or gun very well, and they're moving around, it looks like this guy's moving around some, then give them verbal commands to crawl away, crawl out more into the open where people can see them a little bit better. And if they're not moving any, they could be playing possum, waiting for people to get up there so they can just quickly turn around, ambush, and try and kill them. The tactic of using less lethal munitions on someone, for example, taking a 40 millimeter launcher and hitting them with that impact munition to get a response out of them, see if they're going to move. Because if someone's laying there playing possum, there's no way they're going to shrug off being hit with a 40 millimeter impact munition or a beanbag round. Say for this angle right here, this guy with the gun, if he had aimed a beanbag round at this dude's buttocks region, and let's say this guy was playing possum, and he aimed a beanbag at the dude's buttock regions and fired off a beanbag sock in this dude's ass, that dude's going to move. He's going to make some kind of, if he's conscious and everything, he's going to make some kind of move, and then they'll know, oh, this dude's playing possum, and then continue to give verbal commands to get compliance. If there is no movement whatsoever, you hit them a couple of times, then that person's most likely unconscious, and people can then safely approach. With this dude being conscious and moving around, they could make the attempts to give him the verbal commands to move away, etc. If his hand's kind of tucked in, they can't really see the gun very well, they could still use less lethal impact munitions to gain compliance out of him. Hit him with some 40 millimeter or 12 gauge impact munitions, get him to put his arms out where they can see him and gain compliance that way. Or even utilizing something like a pepper ball gun. Pepper ball gun could be utilized in something like this. If he's not wanting to put his arms out where they can be seen, light his ass up with it. One, you're going to get the benefit of causing pain compliance by peppering him with the pepper balls. But then, too, also, when those things burst and throw the capsaicin powder everywhere, he's going to start having involuntary eye closure and everything, and that's going to be an added benefit whenever the arrest team goes up to take care of him. But then when the arrest team goes up, like I said, just use the existing vehicles that are already there as quote-unquote cover. Trying to put an officer in the driver's seat of a squad car and row forward towards a person with a gun, to me, is not the greatest idea. Because like I said, the most vulnerable person is the operator of that vehicle. The only thing between them and the bad guy is a windshield, and bullets go through windshields pretty damn easy.
Officers. Mr. Wagner was transported by ambulance to an area hospital where he was later pronounced deceased. Following a police shooting, any officers involved in the incident are separated and assigned to a supervisor once the situation is stabilized. Involved officers remain in the company of the assigned supervisor throughout the initial investigation of the incident. Investigators located and interviewed several individuals who witnessed Mr. Wagner's actions prior to the arrival of officers. The witnesses described seeing Mr. Wagner assuming a shooter's stance before shooting at people in the park and at a nearby construction site. No one was injured by the rounds fired by Mr. Wagner. During the crime scene investigation,
Damn, that's a lot of fucking evidence markers there. So I'm going to assume that these are all shell casings from the bad guy.
detectives and crime lab technicians located a .45 caliber Cimarron firearm, which was the firearm Mr. Wagner possessed, and pointed towards officers. Additionally, 24 .45 caliber shell casings were located near the Jeep Grand Cherokee. These shell casings were forensically linked.
So dude went through basically a whole box of ammo shooting at people. It was like he's a fan of Sprite, Pringles, and McDonald's. I don't know. And I guess he dips.
To the firearm Mr. Wagner possessed. A functionality test was conducted on the recovered firearm, and it was determined the firearm was functional. A toxicology screen showed the presence of alcohol in Mr. Wagner's system.
I'm not sure what kind of alcohol this is.
Through the investigation, it was determined the 3 Denver police officers fired a total of 14 rounds.
All right, so 3 cops.
13 rounds were fired by 2 officers from their handguns, and 1 round was fired by an officer using
13 pistol rounds and 1 rifle round was fired.
An urban rifle. The Denver District Attorney will review the details of this incident and determine if the officers at the review of this guns fired a was shell firearms and cracked rounds shooting located sanitizer. This controlled approach by officers was necessary to ensure their safety because Mr. Wagner's hands and the Olive Street and shoot.
So this to me seems like a suicide by police kind of deal. I haven't read anything else into this, so I don't know, if they found this out during the investigation that he was suicidal. But based on everything I'm seeing, this looks like suicide by police. Looks like that dude decided to get liquored up, go out to this park, fire his gun off to draw the attention of police to come to him, and then maybe he had the thought that he was going to do it himself, and he put that gun to his head, and then I guess he chickened out, and then he pointed the gun at the police to make them do the job for him. Unfortunately, that happens a lot in this country. Suicide by police. It sucks that this dude got to this point in his life where he thought that self-terminating was the only option. Mental health it's a real thing. The buzzword now is mental health. Mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health, mental health. It is a real thing. I do think that it's used as a crutch a lot of times. Like, oh, the poor thing, he had mental health. That's why he went and robbed everybody. But there is some true legit cases of mental health. There's a lot of people out there who've got some psychological problems. They got some huge depression going on, and it seems like to me that this guy probably fell victim to some severe depression. So I empathize with him on that. That sucks that he got to that point in his life that he said, you know what, the only way my problem's going to be fixed is if I die. However, at the same time, I'm pissed at him for wanting to do this to people who are good people, who are innocent, and force other people to have to shoot him. So his mental health issue has potentially now spawned new mental health issues with the people who had to do this to him. Of those 3 officers who shot at him, 1, 2, or even all 3 of them may now either now or sometime later on down the road, experience some huge issues out of this mentally. So I think it's very selfish of someone to do something like this, suicide by police, and force other people to have to shoot them. It's shitty. And so like I said, I empathize with the fact that he's going through some stuff. At the same time, it's like, man, fuck you for doing this. And for that matter, why the hell, if these people want other people to do the damn job for them, why can't they just go down to where the gangs are at in town? Go to the damn ghetto and do a suicide by thug. Those motherfuckers like shooting people. Fucking shoot people all the time. Why can't they just go down there and do that shit? Why do they have to quote unquote pick on the police and force good, upstanding people to have to do these acts? Not much else to say about this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.